Welcome to the 360 Man Podcast, a podcast designed to help you follow Jesus in every area of your life. My name is Nathan Rouse, one of the many 360 men's ministry directors around the country, coming to you from Houston, Texas. So good to have you with me today. Whether you're listening while you're on your commute, whether you're mowing the grass, folding laundry, swinging the golf club, whatever you're doing, I'm glad you're here. Man, it's been a crazy, crazy month, even just for me personally. I was been navigating all kinds of things with our family and my mom and her health crisis that she had this month, and she even passed away this last Friday afternoon. So we've been walking through that. It's been wonderful times of celebrating her life, but the emotional toll of just grieving. So I'm so grateful to be able to have this outlet to be able to connect with you each and every month, and to know that so many men have been holding me up, reaching out and praying for me. It's good to be here with you guys. Listen, we've got a great episode for you today. It's a different episode. I'll just going to call it that. It's a different episode. But before we get into that, I want to make sure that you know about the ongoing call that we were sending out regarding the idea of becoming a 360 man. We've got a movement of men going on across our country. And 360 Man is not simply the name of our podcast. It's a nationwide network of men that are coming together to grow together in Jesus. It's this idea of partnering together to invest and impact the world for the Lord. And I want to encourage you to check out our website, 360manpodcast.com, and find out how to become a 360 man. And by signing up to be a part of this men's network and being a part of monthly supporting this ministry, it allows our national office in Springfield, Missouri, to produce top-notch resources for us as men. And it's produced an incredible app, a free men's ministry app that's been a gift to so many people, that has on that app devotionals, Bible studies, training for developing a men's ministry in your church, tons of stuff. But it's even more than a partnership and a network of men. It's also a dedication of a lifestyle. The idea of becoming a 360 man is a commitment to how we're going to grow, how we're going to come together in courage, in strength, and endurance as men. And so I want to encourage you that you begin to lean in and consider joining this movement as we lean into what God has for us in this brotherhood. And I love this, guys. When you sign up to become a 360 man and part of the 360 Man Network, you're going to receive a 360 Man challenge coin. It's going to be sent to your home. I carry mine on the regular to remind me of who God's called me to be. And it also reminds me of so many other men that are out there that are staying with me and holding me up in the middle of all this. We've just started the podcast a few months ago. Already 455 men across the country have jumped in and are a part of this network. And I want to challenge you to join us as well. You can go to 360manpodcast.com and click on the link that says Become a 360 Man, and you'll find out all you need to join this movement. So now for today's episode. A while back, I was sitting down for dinner with our National Men's Ministry Director, Rick Allen, and we were talking about various episodes and topics that we had on the board and that were scheduled. And it was during that dinner that he shared with me that he thought it'd be good for you, as our listening audience, to get to know me as your host. Now, my initial response to that was, Rick, nobody wants to hear about me. That's not where guys want to be talking about different topics. He says, no, Nathan, it's important that people have a context and hear the story of those that they're listening to. So with that, I relented, and we had an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation as he actually turned the tables, and he became the interviewer, and he interviewed me. And so today's episode, you're going to get to hear a bit of my story, where God's brought me, what he's done in my life. And we'll drop into that in just a moment. But I challenge you to stick with us the entire episode, because after this interview, I've got a question that I'm putting out to our listeners and to you guys as men across the country that I need an answer from you. There's something that I need to hear from you, and you'll hear that question in just a little bit. With that being said, let's drop into this week's episode. All right, Rick. All right, you've asked for it. You're going to have your way today. It's a little different today. I'm not used to this, being on this end of the interview. But Rick, you're going to interview me today, so I guess I'll give it to you.
Well, and thank you so much. And for those listening today, we're going to have some fun, because as the moderator, you get to ask all the questions, and lots of times we listen and we go, well, I wonder what his story is. Well, today the National Men's Director is going to ask the 360 podcast moderator some questions about his life and about things as he's learned. Nathan is a fantastic pastor. He has a proven track record. He's down here in the Houston area. He is beloved by everyone in his network fields. He is just a treasured gift of the kingdom, guys. And so I'm going to ask Nathan a few questions. Number one, Nathan, share with me a little bit about your background that I would be amazed in your background.
Okay. All right. Amazed in my background. Man, I think my story probably has a lot of, by the grace of God, some resilience of God helping me get back up or persevere through some things that I have no idea how I've overcome some of these things. And again, that's a testament to the Lord, not necessarily to me, and some amazing people around me. I grew up like a lot of guys in a broken home. My mom and dad divorced before I was born, and so there were some challenges that my mom faced with as a single mom. And anybody that's out there that's been a single parent or has been raised by a single parent, they know what the challenges are with that. But I had some challenges in my life. Some of those things, some of that with being my parents trying to do their very best as much as they knew, but also dealing with some past abuse. And so,
how did you handle,
and not from them, but other people,
living in a fatherless home?
That definitely was, as a word you'd like to use, it was a pain point for me. For sure, my dad wanted to be there. In some ways, I think him and I have had some close one-on-one conversations about it, and I think he did what he knew, and there wasn't a lot given to him. What was in his dad's toolbox, he didn't have a lot to give me as a father, and so we weren't as close as I wish we would have been. And probably as close as I think he probably wanted, but I think that was rooted out of him not knowing how.
And how many siblings do you have?
I've got 3 siblings, a half brother and a stepbrother, stepsister.
Yeah. Okay, and are you in the middle of the pack?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest.
I'm the oldest. Yeah.
And do you feel the pressure of being the oldest child?
I think so. Probably not so much now, but when I was younger, I think I felt a little bit of that. You know, my mom and I being alone for a while, that created a part of me that was trying to kind of a protector and wanted to kind of rise up some, and so I think right now I still want to be a resource and a help to my family, and I think they feel good enough that I can be a phone call away for them. Yeah.
I know from your story that you went into the military. Did you do that to escape? Did you do that as part of the master plan? What and how old were you when and for those I know you can't see, there was just a grin on his face like, this is a story that I don't tell a lot. So
right. So honestly, I think my initial going into the Army at a young age, I enlisted in what was called a split op training, which was you could enlist in your junior year of high school.
Wow.
Go to boot camp the summer before your senior year.
Okay.
And then after your senior year, you'd be able to go on to whatever MOS you had. I honestly think what drove that was a part of me that wasn't really prayed about and thought through. It was generally about something within me that wanted to distinguish myself from other people. I want to be different. And that goes into all kinds of other things.
What were you searching for?
Significance. I think it's a lot of something guys want in their life, and especially for me, I was trying to find myself, and I really wanted to stand out. I wanted to be somebody, and I felt like I for a long time, tried to find my significance in performing or doing or standing out from other people, because I wanted to be seen, not necessarily on stage, although there was some of that, but I wanted to be just seen. I wanted to be seen by other people.
Yeah, you wanted to make a difference.
Yeah.
How many years were you in the military?
Just that first portion, just a couple of years, because right after that, I had a radical call in the ministry. And it was a great story. I went to my reserve commander, and I shared with him that I felt a call in the ministry. He was very stoic, colonel, and he looked angry all the time. So I was scared to death when I walked into his office. And a tech sergeant let me into the room, and he was there sitting at his desk, and I stood at attention. He said, "I've been told that you want to be discharged. What's the reason?" And of course, I'm shaking, literally shaking in my boots. I am in combat boots as I'm shaking in front of him, and I began to express to him, to this person I don't know. I've never even had a one-on-one conversation with this colonel, and I'm expressing to him the call of God on my life. And I run through this story with him, and finally, he looks up from his desk and he says, "Rouse," he said, "I'm not getting in the way of God." And he signed the form right there, handed it to me. I walked out, and that's how I was. I mean, I couldn't believe it. He released me from my enlistment commitment. So I was
Isn't
grateful.
it interesting that sometimes, as we journey as young men, we have discovery moments, discussion moments, and destiny moments.
Yeah.
And lots of times, young men can't distinguish them. And so they're constantly chasing the rainbow.
So
they're
true.
chasing the dollar. They're going after the Benjamins.
Right.
And your destiny moments, that was one of them.
Huge.
You weren't in front of that superior officer for 10 minutes tops.
Yeah.
And yet that was a destiny moment for you.
Yeah, I think about how different my trajectory of my life would have been had he said, "No, you're stuck or you're in." And of course, I know the Lord would have worked all things out for good, but it was so powerful. Yeah, I don't even know if he knew the Lord. We never had a further conversation. He just said, "I don't want to get in the way of God," which I was grateful for.
Without trying to evaluate your family situation, for me, with the dysfunction in my family, I wanted to feel needed. I wanted to be able to help people, whatever it cost. I was a middle child, and so, and I wanted to make sure that when I was always trying to do my best to let people know that they're worth something. Share with me a very intimate moment with you. You've already shared with me the destiny moment of the boots.
Yeah.
Why don't you share with me the destiny moment of the chain link fence?
Oh, yeah. So prior to that conversation, walking into that Army officer's, the colonel's office, I had kind of had a plan for my life. I figured out what I was going to do. I really felt like I wanted to be in entertainment. I thought I'd be an actor. I wanted to be a singer. I had my dream set forward. I'd been looking at a specific school, had a plan rolled out, and I was all ready to go. But the summer, two quick stories. The summer after my senior year, I go to camp. At the very end of that camp week, it's been a fun week, encouraged, challenged. I had a Reggie Dabbs. I don't know if you remember him.
I do know
yeah,
Reggie.
yeah. So
Good
national
friend.
speaker. He was speaking at this camp. And at the end of this week, he says, "Hey, at the end of the service, what you're going to do is I want you to write down what God's asking you to lay down." And we were supposed to go top of the mountain. Massive lightning thunderstorm was going on. We had to do it inside the chapel. So about 250 kids are in this room. Again, summer after my senior year. He says, "Bow your head. There's a pen and a Post-it note. You're going to write down what you want to give to the Lord. There's a cross up at the front. You'll lay it down. When you're ready, after you've finished bowing your head and you've written out what you want, lift your head up, and I'll come by and I'll tap you on the shoulder. You cannot go up until I tap you on the shoulder." So we all bow our heads. We're all trying to hear from God. Everybody's writing on their Post-it notes. Heads go up, and he walks around, and as people's heads come up, he taps them on the shoulder. Well, I do that. I've lifted my head up. I'm ready. I've written my thing down. I'm ready to go give it to the Lord. And he walks over to me, and there are some other people around me that are ready as well. He touches their shoulders, but doesn't touch mine. So I'm like, okay. I feel like maybe he just missed me. Well, that happens several more times. Other people are now ready around me. He comes back over to release them and let them go. He doesn't touch me again. And now at this point, I'm like, what am I doing? What am I missing? God, I close my eyes tighter. God, speak to me. What am I holding back from you? Finally, at the very end, when everybody else has been released, he walks all the way back up to the room. He touches me on the shoulder, and then I go up. Service gets wrapped up. Later on, after everybody was released, I made my way back behind stage, got to the green room where he and the band were kind of hanging out, and I kind of pushed my way in. And I walked up to him. I said, "Reggie, I just got to ask, what's going on? What was going on there?" And he said this. He goes, "I always save my preachers for last." And bro, I was floored because I had this entire plan. I literally laughed out loud. I just said, "What, bro? You missed it, man." I began to rattle off, and he just is like waving me off. He says, "Man, you'll see." A week later, got home, washed clothes, got ready, and left for an inner city Ames mission trip, inner city DC, with our youth group. We'd do a VBS during the day, and then we'd do services out in the projects on the blacktop at night. On Thursday night, my youth pastor at the time, Kyle, came to me, knocked on the door. He says, "Man, I really feel like you're supposed to preach tomorrow." And I said, "Kyle, I don't preach. I've never preached in my life. You're the preacher." He says, "No, I'm telling you, I really do believe God is supposed to speak through you tomorrow." I was mortified, but I love my youth pastor, love Kyle, and he just lovingly insisted. And I just went back, stayed up late, trying to come up with maybe like a 3-point sermon like he did each and every week. So that next night, of course, all day long, I'm freaking out, thinking about I'm supposed to be doing these other activities with the kids. I can't even think about it because I'm thinking about that night. We get there late that night, and we're on the blacktop. We're set up. They get the lights up. Sound system gets turned on. They do some songs. All of a sudden, it's my turn, and he turns it over to me to preach. People are hanging out of windows in the projects. Drug deals are going on all around us. People hanging, drinking 40s. Everybody's just, it is the projects. So I get up and I preach, honestly, the shortest sermon I've ever preached in my entire life. I rattle through my notes, my scrap of paper notes, and the Bible, and I do an altar call, whatever that looked like the first time, and the same kids that had gotten saved every single day came down. I wrapped it up, handed it back to Kyle, and I just felt like a complete and utter failure. I walk over and I sit next to he mentioned the chain link fence. I sit next to this fence, and I'm honestly I'm mad and I'm angry at Kyle. It's like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. This is obvious. This is a joke. Why did I even do this? And all of a sudden, a woman walks up, and she's carrying a baby, and she says, "Preacher." And I'm looking around thinking she's talking to somebody else. She's talking to me. She says, "Preacher, I want to go to heaven. I want to know Jesus." So I got up, and I didn't even really know how to pray with her. And I just began the Lord just kind of helped me muddle through a prayer with her. She's crying. I'm crying. Her baby's crying. It was powerful. Some other people began to crowd up around us. We connect her with the pastor of the church that we were partnering with. Later on, we go get on the church bus, the youth bus. All the youth group stays at the front of this bus, and I go all the way back to the very back of the bus, like row after row is empty. It's just me alone. And you remember those green seats, right? You could smell the vinyl still. Right. Like right now, I'm even talking about it. And Ricky was like, it was like the Lord put his hand on me. I felt, and he said, "I want you for the rest of your life." And I just began to weep. I remember my tears kind of rolling off the other side of the seat. And after that, it was just, I came home surrendered, and, the rest is history.
It happens that way to all of us. We're all uniquely and wonderfully made by God. And so many of you guys, you may be listening right now going, "That's a great story. It doesn't happen to me." It does if you will stop and allow God to show you the destiny moment. But so many times we're running our pace of life. We miss the destiny moments because we just run through them. I'm going to ask you a couple questions now that you're not prepared for. I did not tell you I was going to do this. I know I was going to.
Okay.
If you could go back now, what would you say to Kyle?
Man, I know where he's at right now. I know I could pick up the phone. We've talked. I would tell him, thank you for being obedient to what the Lord was telling you in that moment. So many guys in ministry and leadership have such a white knuckle grip on ministry, and they don't release it very well to other people, much less a kid that's never preached. I would say thank you for being obedient to the Lord, but also thank you for seeing with spiritual eyesight in a guy and a young man that didn't see it in himself.
Wow.
Thank you for calling it out in me and releasing and giving me an opportunity that I did not earn in any way. You know how we say, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. Well, while I was still ignorant and unexperienced, Kyle gave me opportunity, and I'll never be able to repay the privilege of that.
What would you say to the colonel?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
He gambled.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. He had to put his own name on that, and even as he ran it up to his superiors, but I'm grateful. Thank you.
What would you say to Dabbs?
Man, I've never been able to have that conversation with him. I don't have his number. I would love to be able to tell him, because I'm sure he's ministered to thousands of guys like me. I've never been able to talk to him, but I would just say that one of the same things. Thanks for being sensitive to the Spirit. Thank you for all the traveling and speaking he does. Thank you, Reggie, for not making it about you, but making it about a kid.
Okay, and this last one, I want you to take a breath before you answer.
All right.
What would you say to the woman at the fence when she came up with her baby and said, "Preacher"? What would you want to say to her tonight?
I would say no matter what life has dealt you in the last 20-something years, God is still good. God is still good, and you're loved by him. And there are no accidents in the kingdom of God. And just like he's got a destiny for me, he's got a destiny for you and that little one. I'd like to see that little young man that she was holding at the time, like what he's doing. But I would say you're still loved by God. And thank you for thank you for responding.
By her calling you preacher, she validated the call.
Yeah, it's so true. Yeah.
And sometimes men, and even women, if you're listening, the validation comes from different areas. It's not always the peers.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just people. And sometimes we lose sight of that the validation of your calling or your position or your plan is given by many people that have very short windows into your life. And there is a difference between being validated for Christ and someone giving you a prophetic word from Christ. And too many men are looking for prophetic words from Christ and not validation through Christ.
Yeah.
So as a pastor, and then I have one more question I want to ask you after this. As a pastor, how would you instruct men that are listening on how do they guard their heart so they do not get swept away by people trying to prophesy into their life? And how do they understand the affirmation of being confirmed by people for what God is wanting to do in their life?
I think one would be maybe just straight up biblical, that any prophetic word over you, it's going to be in alignment with Scripture, right? Anything kind of outside the realm of God's ways and His Word, you can cull that out easy, right? That's not from the Lord. I do think there are going to be some people in your life that their love for you and their own integrity and their walk with God is a filter that you can trust. Man, this person genuinely cares about me. There's not a power play here.
Okay.
You're discerning through flattery. You know what I mean?
So can you unpack discerning through flattery? What does that mean for the guy just listening to you? What does that mean? What's the difference between flattery and affirmation? So
flattery is puffed up praise. I mean, sometimes we know when someone begins to talk maybe about a gift we have, you probably have some initial recognition that that's a real thing. But if you've ever heard someone kind of go off and they're kind of puffing you up on various things, and good and well you're not that fantastic with that, or there's some reality of there's sometimes, and also you can be discerning of, does this person throw words out lightly to everybody? To me, when you come in contact with other people, that you can tell they're discerning, they're wise in the words they deal out. Their words are few or fewer. That when they hand those out, that those things are a gift, and then to me, that can be helpful.
That's so good, Nathan, and it's so practical what you just shared. And the remaining moments we have, Nathan, I would like to ask you, how did you meet your wife?
Man, I met my wife. This is what I say first about my wife. She is the one I never knew I wanted.
Unpack that a little bit.
She's the one I never knew. I had an idea of the kind of woman I wanted to marry, or what she might look and be like. And I'm so glad God had something better than my highest ideal of what that would be like. My wife is my best friend. That wasn't always the case, but she is my best friend. We met. I was helping lead worship for a youth group in Duncanville, Texas, outside of near Southwestern, where I was going to college at the time. And she was one of the youth leaders, one of the college youth leaders for the youth group. And we had interaction. We'd seen each other for a couple of years. I was dating some of her friends. I hate to admit that, but anyway, I'm so glad those didn't go in. Those weren't permanent situations, thankfully. But I was coming back from an internship in Oklahoma City right before college in 1997. And she was actually working for the youth pastor. She was the administrative assistant. And I'd gone up. He was letting me crash at his house the night before the dorms opened. I walked in. And again, we had known each other for about a year and a half, 2 years. And walked in, and Johnny was there, the youth pastor. And then she was there at her side desk. And he walked out to do something, to go get a key for me or something. And I looked over at her and said, "Aaron, so good to see you." And I said, "You free tonight? You want to grab dinner?" And she said, "You buying?" I said, "Absolutely." And she said, "Sure." And I said, "Great, pick me up at 7 because my car is full of junk." So she ended up picking me up and taking me. But I was a big spender that night. I even bought appetizers. Come on, we had steak. I shelled it out. I saw potential, and I was willing to pony up the cash to make an impression.
How many years have you been married?
We've been married 22 years.
22 years. How many children do you have?
We have 2 sons, Ethan and Landon. Ethan is 17. He graduates this Sunday.
Okay.
And then my youngest son, 14 months younger than him, is 16, Landon. So Ethan and
Okay.
Landon, yeah.
So if there's someone out there in a similar situation to you, children, teenagers getting ready to make transition, what would you tell them to start preparing for?
Well,
and then we're done.
Yeah. So what I would tell you is, don't live in regret. If you're like me, my boys are 16 and 17. I've been putting together a graduation slideshow for my son's party. I've been living in a little bit of regret. I wish I could get back into a time machine and capture some. So if you're younger and your kids are younger, I would grab you by the shirt, pull you to my face and say, stop doing what you're doing, spend more time with your kids. To those that are in the same spot maybe that I am right now, I would say, man, don't live under condemnation. Be grateful for the gift of your family and your sons and the memories that you do have. Embrace them, cherish them, and celebrate this next chapter, because just like God has been faithful in the past, you can trust him with the next one.
Nathan, thank you so much for taking some time to share with us today. And we are so honored that you are our moderator, that you take care of the 360 Man podcast. We're glad you're part of our network. I think Nathan's last statement I would like to leave with you, and it is this: be sure that the destiny moments of your life include your family snapshots.
That's good.
Because many times we look at our destiny stories, and when we get to our family, we end up looking at the pages of regret, not the destiny moments. And guys, make destiny moments with your family and allow God to make your destiny a bright and promising future. It's so good that you joined us this month. And Nathan, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Rick. Man, I'm so grateful for my time with Rick. So grateful to have him in my life. He's such a man of impact to so many people around him, and it was great to share some of my story with him. Listen, with that being said, I've got a question. I told you I have a question for you. Here's the question, and I'm asking this question for an answer. I need to hear from you. Here's the question, what topics or questions would you like to see us tackling on the 360 Man podcast? What do you want to hear about? What are some things that you're navigating personally? What are you seeing in the church that needs to be navigated? What are you seeing in the lives of men around you that you feel like would be a gift? We want to hear from you. And there's a few ways that you can let us hear from you. First of all, you can always email your prayers, your thoughts, your needs to us at the 360 Man Studio by emailing me, Nathan, Nathan, Nathan at 360manpodcast.com. That's 360manpodcast.com. I'd love to hear those topics, those thoughts by email from you. Also, if you're watching this episode on YouTube or on Facebook, you can leave your ideas in the comments below. How you communicate is not as important as that you do communicate. We want to hear from you. Your ideas are going to help make us better. You're going to help us be more effective as we are becoming more and more relevant to what you guys are facing. Listen, that's it for this month's episode. If you feel like this podcast has been a help to you and an encouragement to you, could you take a moment and rate and drop a review on the podcast on whatever platform you're listening? If you're on YouTube, would you subscribe to this channel? When you do these things, it helps the podcast gain momentum and get more exposure to other men around the world. Hey, 360 Men, we love you. We believe in you. Remember, strength, courage, endurance.